By popular request, here are the official rankings of every character you're not supposed to idolize. This video is not going to be a tier list or a worst to best, rather, I'm putting these characters on a graph. On the x-axis, we have the did nothing wrong scale, and on the y-axis, we have the aura scale, or how cool a given character is. Spoilers for every one of these characters incoming. First, let's quickly go through the characters already discussed in my previous videos. Tyler Durden did absolutely nothing wrong. He brought down a corrupt system without killing a single innocent bystander. Perfect 10. On the cool scale, he has to get a 10 as well. He's an icon. Rorschach. Easily the most moral character in Watchmen, but still a little insane. Given how out of control crime seems to be, he gets an 8. He loses points for torturing people unnecessarily and using lethal force against law enforcement. On the cool scale, he gets a 9. When you think of Watchmen, he's the guy you think of. Nicole. On the did nothing wrong scale, she gets a 4. While almost everyone around her really is either a POS or crosses her first in some way, she's still a nasty piece of work. People would be way less hostile to her if she was more pleasant to be around. And she does plenty of stuff that has zero justification whatsoever. Abusing Ari, dealing drugs, straight up murdering Jeffrey. While she does come across as more sympathetic than most other characters in Class of 09, she is not sympathetic. On the aura scale, she gets points for being funny and well voice acted by Elsie Lovelock, so say 6.5. Light Yagami. Like I said before, his real crime was blaspheming, and that puts him at a 7. In modern day society, when repeat criminals are free to walk the streets where they randomly kill people, murking them from a distance is the correct answer. Someone commented that Light mostly kills people already in prison, but that's not a knock against it. The vast majority of crime is committed by ex-convicts. What causes Light to lose points is that, like Rorschach, he murdered innocent law enforcement, and more importantly, made himself a god. Blaspheming is evil and cannot be overlooked. His own pride caused him to lose from the beginning. Whatever other fans might say, killing Lind L. Taylor was the move that sealed his fate. If he had simply done nothing, L couldn't even prove Kira was in Japan. From that point, it was just a matter of time before he was caught. On Aura though, Light wins big time. Everything about his design and Brad Swale's performance is epic. 9.5. Jordan Belfort. 2. He was a real criminal that scammed people out of their money before using it to do drugs, hookers, and create a culture of total degeneracy in his offices. He gets credit for being a good boss to his employees, like giving that one woman money to send her son to school, but if we included things he did in real life that weren't in the movie, we'd have to include the fact that he actively encouraged his sales reps to spend like sailors and go into debt so they'd be more dependent on him. On the aura scale, he's definitely a very cool guy, and his parties are pretty cool. 8. Terran Federation breaks the rating scale. There is no cause more righteous than defending all of humanity, and they do it while looking like Giga Chat. 11 out of 10 for both categories. Now, let's get to some that I haven't talked about before, starting with Patrick Bateman. On the did nothing wrong scale, Bateman actually gets a 7. While it's ambiguous whether he actually killed Paul Allen, here's the thing. In the scene at the restaurant, Allen mentions having a tanning bed at home, but in all the scenes at his apartment, we never actually see it. This, combined with the ending where Allen's supposed apartment is empty and the lawyer guy is claiming he's alive, implies that the murders really were all in his head. My interpretation of American Psycho is that Bateman is the victim. He's a man searching for meaning in a meaningless world. He delivers long soliloquies about commercial pop music because his whole life he's only been shown the most superficial parts of society and human connection. We learn that his father is head of the company he works at, which implies that his job is literally just a LARP. He also went to Harvard Business School, which is the first thing that comes to mind when you think good university. His entire life has been purely by the book. If Bateman were able to do a single thing with real meaning, work a hard day's labor, have sex with someone he actually cares about, it would cure him. Instead, because he's surrounded by shallow, vapid people, he resorts to fantasies of violence. His true madness is that he can't distinguish fantasy from reality. During his scene with the two hookers, he has to set up a camera and make his room into a porn studio. To him, this is what sex actually is. Likewise, he confuses drawing pictures of women being killed with actually killing them. He's an innocent man convinced that he's guilty, completely trapped in his own head, and trapped by the society around him. As for Aura, this guy has to get a 12 out of 10. Every single frame of this movie is a painting with him as the subject. It's a good thing Christian Bale worked out so hard to get this role because he carries this film by his balls. And that was probably painful. Next up, Walter White. This guy gets a 4. Just like Light, Walt's pride greatly hampers him, and the idea of accepting charity disgusts him. Unlike Jordan Belfort, his crimes did have a noble purpose, that is, to provide for his family, at least at the outset. However, outside his family and Jesse, he really doesn't give a shit about anyone. Walt is a bully. Yeah, those kids making fun of Walt Jr. were assholes, but Walt is a grown man beating up on kids. He also fucks with that douchebag stockbroker simply because he can get away with it. Walt never fights fair. It makes sense when he's going up against enemies like Tuco, Gus, or Jack's crew, but he also only kills Mike when he has a gun and Mike doesn't. He's an extremely low and petty man, the kind of guy who feels like the world owes him something when he hasn't put in the work. Just from observing his behavior in the show, it seems definitive that he lies to everyone about what happened between him, Gretchen, and Elliot. Everything he does in the show could have been avoided if he just owned up to his mistakes, let bygones be bygones, and let Elliot pay for his treatment. As for Aura, he's not the most charismatic guy in the show. Gus, Mike, weapons dealer guy, and Saul Goodman all have more aura than him. Walt gets a 5 for his cool schemes and moments, but most of the time, he's clearly out of his depth. Eren Yeager. On Did Nothing Wrong, he gets an 8. He killed an incredibly large amount of innocent people, but the world of Attack on Titan really makes it seem like a worthy sacrifice. The Marlians who aren't explicitly fighting for Eldia are portrayed as damn near irredeemable. The best example of this is the scene where Mr. Saver explains that he used to have a wife and child until she found out about his Eldian heritage and thus killed herself and their young child. This is worse than the actual Nazis. The show goes out of its way to draw parallels between how the Eldians are treated and how the Nazis treated Jews, but no Nazi ever killed themselves because they accidentally slept with a Jew. The level of visceral disgust the Marlians have for the Eldians merely existing has no parallel in real life, except maybe Boers living in South Africa, and this is supposedly the best it gets for them. In other countries, we're told they're treated even worse. While the Rumbling surely kills a great number of Eldians along with their oppressors, not all Eldians are innocent either. Eren's own grandparents hated their own race, and successfully taught Zeke to do the same. The Tiber family has used the power of the Warhammer for generations to continue oppressing their own kin. What else was Eren supposed to do to bring about a peaceful world where his own race wasn't treated like dirt? I have Italian heritage, and if I were in a position where I had to press one of two buttons, one immediately killing all Italians and one killing everyone else, this might be controversial to say, but I would kill everyone else, with apologies to everyone in my family who's Irish. As for Aura, the only thing you need is that Season 4's second opening theme is literally an Eren Yeager edit, and the second best theme in the show. On the Aura scale, Eren gets an 8.5. Paul Atreides. This one is an incomplete ranking because I've only read the first book and watched the Denis Villeneuve films, but here we go. On the Did Nothing Wrong scale, Paul gets a 7.5. As I talked about in my Attack on Titan video, Paul is similar to Eren in that he's a victim of fate, though unlike Eren, he plays a much more proactive role in his own destiny. And, much like Eren, I think it's moral to put the survival of your family and kin, even if adopted, over that of the invaders. By launching the Jihad, Paul defeats the Harkonnens, saves his house, and ultimately ensures the survival of the entire human race. I'll probably update this ranking once I've read or watched the rest of the story. For Aura, Timothée Chalamet is top tier, and Villeneuve's directing sells him perfectly as a near-messianic figure, but Zendaya ruins everything. Paul loses all the respect he earns for picking this ugly, unsupportive, nagging goblin to be his wife. In the book, marrying Princess Irulan was a grievous sacrifice Paul had to make in order to take control of the Empire. Here, marrying her is objectively an upgrade. And the film has the audacity to end focusing on Zendaya's trademark scowl as she rides off into the desert. This is Villeneuve's way of subtly stating to the audience that Paul is very, very bad, and not understanding this is a failure of media literacy. 5. Don Michael Corleone. Again, this is incomplete because I haven't seen Godfather Part 2 yet, but I want to get this video out sooner. On the one hand, Michael never had to be any sort of criminal. As a distinguished and decorated Marine captain, he certainly had no shortage of legitimate occupations he could have pursued. On the other hand, after he does become a criminal, he mainly acts to protect his family, especially his abused sister. While his family is involved in some reprehensible behavior, he can't simply turn his back on them, and their power means he can't simply give up the mafia life. So for the first movie, he gets a 7. His most dishonorable act is lying to Carlo that he wasn't going to kill him. He should have at least let him die like a man. As for Aura, it's Al Pacino, enough said, 8.5. Next is Kuvira from Legend of Korra. On the did nothing wrong scale, she gets a 9. In the face of widespread far-left radical terror, Kuvira restores order, ends banditry, delivers much-needed supplies to the people, and advances technology to the point she's able to build a frickin' mecha. All of the ways she jumps off the slippery slope don't make sense. She was an overwhelmingly popular leader. Why lock dissenters in prison camps? And before you bring up Mustache Man, Jews in Nazi Germany were a significant population bloc opposed to his aims. No such population seems to exist in the Earth Empire. I know it fits with the theme of Korra villains having understandable motivations while taking them too far, but none of the previous antagonists went so far as to fire a WMD at their own fiancé. Nevertheless, whether it's character derailment or not, she still did those things and so loses a point. As for Aura, Kuvira earns the most points for being such a badass leader to her people. Amon deceives his followers and loses their support once he's exposed. Unalaq uses his own children like tools. Zahir's followers are mostly bio-Leninist trash, only looking for an excuse to loot and kill. He cares about his close circle, but outside of that doesn't really direct or interact with anyone below them. Kuvira, on the other hand, puts in the work herself, offering to fight the Avatar to prove that there's nothing she'd order her men to do that she wouldn't do herself. That alone is worth an 8. Next is Joker from Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. On the did nothing wrong scale, Joker gets a very societal 1. He's literally the personification of evil and chaos. Something something, watch the world burn, etc. But the true genius of Heath Ledger's Joker is that while he's a symbol, he also comes across as very human. In more cartoonish renditions of the Joker, falling into a vat of chemicals is what turned him insane and gave him his trademark white skin and green hair. On the opposite side of the spectrum, you have Arthur Fleck, a very soulful individual who turns to evil out of disillusionment with society. But in between, you have Heath Ledger's Joker, a man that retains all the evil and maniacal schemes of his predecessors while also visibly being a mere man. The white on his face isn't nondescript comic book toxic waste, it's makeup that he himself applied. Contrary to many of his incarnations, this Joker never really acts like a circus ringleader. Instead of a showman, he's a cunning manipulator and a businessman. In essence, Joker makes the entire film feel less like a comic book movie and more like a crime drama. Heath Ledger perfectly makes him just maniacal enough to be seen as the incarnation of savagery and anarchy, while just realistic enough to make him unsettling, threatening, and believable. He threw Joker deep into the uncanny valley. Christopher Nolan's trilogy as a whole feels much more realistic to me than any other incarnation of Batman, but that's a tangent for another time. Heath Ledger Joker will always be legendary, and for that, he gets a 10 on the Aura scale. My last ranking for this video is Terrence Fletcher from Whiplash. I only just watched it before writing this, and on the did nothing wrong scale, he'll get a 3. While Fletcher successfully made Andrew a great drummer, who else did his teaching method actually work for? Yeah, the band kept winning contests as a band, but we don't hear about any individual competitions for his students to actually shine in. If he's not doing those, then he doesn't actually give a shit about any of them. And even if he is doing them, he lies to them about why Sean Casey died, he lies to Andrew to sabotage him during a professional concert, and he keeps the entire band hours late just so he can train his drummers. What were they supposed to learn during that time? What were they paying for? Fletcher is simply needlessly cruel. Teachers who are not in the military shouldn't act like drill sergeants. Knowing how to take abuse is very useful when you're training to be shot at and blown up, not so much when you're learning music. How is throwing chairs supposed to make anyone play faster? It's been a while since I was in band, but if you can't play something fast enough, you do it slowly over and over again until you get it right. You don't just wail harder on the notes/beats. With all that being said, Fletcher isn't wrong to demand perfection from his students. If he just put them through their steps, smoking them every day without screaming and abusing them, he could have had a much longer career at the conservatory. But then he would have lost his aura score of 8 because damn is J.K. Simmons entertaining to watch. Also, brief tangent, Andrew sucks worse than Fletcher. Andrew is a stuck-up prick who thinks he's better than everybody else after one successful concert, actively pushes his own family away, and breaks up with a girl who was 100% out of his league. And he wonders why she has a boyfriend the next time he calls. I hope his cousins absolutely clowned on him when he got kicked out of school because he deserves it. Anyways, that's it for the ranking video. But there's one more character we have to talk about. One without whom we wouldn't have this list in the first place. The original character you're not supposed to idolize. The one who predates the term media literacy by hundreds of years. The one and only Don Quixote de la Mancha. Hero of one of the first modern novels. If you're not familiar with Don Quixote, he was originally written as a parody of knights and chivalry. A crazy old man who decided to go around attacking windmills he thought were giants, wooing prostitutes he called ladies, and having various wacky adventures in the Spanish countryside. The author, Miguel de Cervantes, wrote the book to condemn the values of the old world, and prominent authors agreed with him. Mark Twain said the book swept the world's admiration for the medieval chivalry silliness out of existence. Twain was wrong. Don Quixote, far from being mocked, is considered one of the most heroic characters in all of literature. Modern adaptations of the story, such as Man of La Mancha, portray the world as being in the wrong, and Don Quixote as the one trying to fix it, even if he fails every time. So if anyone ever tries to tell you that you missed the point of a work, just ask them what they think of Don Quixote and Man of La Mancha. That ought to shut them up. Comment below where you'd place your favorite character and what other videos you'd like to see in the future. Until next time, this is Apollyon Analysis.